How's it going, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and this is the Geek Bravado Ramble. It is Saturday afternoon where I am, so cheers. We went out shopping, so I just was lazy and got my afternoon at McDick's, as you do. So yeah, this was my sort of yearly blog entry and video companion talking about E3, which has come and gone for the year 2016. And it was interesting this year. I really wish we could have done the commentary over the podcast. No, try again. Press conferences that we did last year. That actually would have been really fun. I had a good time doing that last year, but sadly, new job, not enough time to book those days off. So I watched them. I watched most of them. I've watched every press conference except the Ubisoft show, but I got the gist of what they showed there. But yeah, I hope we could maybe do a commentary thing next year. I did sort of chat with the Extra Life Guild in Slack while the Sony one was going on, which was pretty fun. That was cool. Maybe we'll do something with that crew next year. I'll see who I can wrangle together. But yeah, it was another year, another batch of interesting stuff. This E3 definitely had a different vibe about it. We're sort of having the conversations again that you tended to hear every year about E3's relevance and is it important anymore, etc., etc. And in the past, I largely blew those off as just, games press making hay as they do, because it seemed that the response to E3 was still humongous and was doing extremely well. But this year, definitely not so much. Several big publishers either pulled out of E3 entirely or had a very minimal presence there. There were several outlets who were saying that the show floor was pretty barren this year. The gaps between booths, like the sort of walkways, were extra wide this year. I haven't listened to it yet, but some of the guys from Giant Bomb apparently did a podcast sitting on the floor, on the show floor, which is normally deafening to the point where you couldn't record anything, and they had no trouble at all. It was definitely felt like a smaller event this year, and a lot more publishers are just realizing that in this era where the games press in particular is far less relevant and it's easier than ever to communicate directly to your audience via your own events, that's kind of the way they want to go. And I think this year it is valid to have a conversation about the relevance of E3. I do wonder, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I think even if its relevance continues to fade, the ESA will attempt to keep E3 going as long as possible, because it's sort of their big chance to brag every year, if you will, about the industry that they represent. But I do wonder if it's going to maybe end up scaling back at some degree, becoming a much smaller show, or I don't know, maybe in a few years it just won't be around anymore. It's going to be very interesting because we have fewer big publishers than we used to, but we also have a couple of new ones like Bethesda who are newly big, and some up-and-comers like Deep Silver. And because the cost of speaking directly to your customers through your own events has gotten so low, like, it kind of feels like it's cool that Bethesda's doing their own press conference now, but at the same time, it kind of feels like they are just piggybacking on E3 because, well, it's there and they might as well. There's no reason they couldn't do that themselves if they wanted to, right? So I have a feeling more of these companies are going to be like, well, these guys did it on their own and they did just fine, so, why don't we do it? I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next few years with that. As I've said before, I like E3, there are a lot of people out there who just cynically dismiss it as this is a horrible marketing event pandering to consumer sheep. Why are you playing into this? You're playing right into the industry's hands, blah, 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 blah. I've never agreed with that. I always get excited about E3 simply because it's the biggest time of the year where you just get a big dump about new games. And regardless of the way in which they're being pitched to me, I like hearing about new stuff and seeing what's coming down, and that's where you sort of get the biggest concentration of that, and I find that very exciting and very enjoyable. I know what I'm being marketed to, I know what an advertisement is, and I know to take them as such. I know that what you see at E3 in these sizzle reels probably doesn't represent the final product. That's been proven many times over. And I think if you go into it knowing that, there's nothing wrong with being excited and hyped about E3, because it's just on the core principle of, hey, we're gamers and it's new games and that's what we like. So I don't see what's wrong with being excited about that, to be honest with you. And I tried to follow E3 as much as I could, despite the fact that I had to work through a lot of it. I've been following, I couldn't stay up late enough to watch Giant Bomb's live shows. I'm halfway through the second day right now. Those shows, the first day was 3.5 hours. The second day is 4.5 hours long. I don't know how long the third day is, but good God. I've been second screening it while I've been playing The Division, which has been working out quite well. So, but I'm getting through them. It's very interesting. I like those shows because they have a lot of influential people on from the industry, people who know things, and they tend to speak very candidly. I really like the Giant Bomb live shows because I said this in a previous one of these videos, but it's very nice to see even higher up executives from the game industry like Phil Spencer and people like that just kind of talk like human beings and not pawns of marketing. You know, Phil Spencer, it's clear he's a company man when he speaks, but he also speaks very candidly and very openly, and he's not one to shy away from admitting mistake, which is something I really respect in executives, because very few executives these days are about taking responsibility for anything. And he very much has been, and he's been very candid about the kind of mess that the Don Matrick era left him with at Microsoft. And he's owning it and trying his best to correct for that. And I think it's pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm generally here to talk about the show as a whole, and just, that was sort of my big picture perspective. We're going to talk about the games that were through the different press conferences here, and I have some commentary on some other things that I'll save to the end, because that's when I'll probably turn into Angry Parallax, so, need another hit before that. So, yeah, I've got a list up here of the press conferences and the games that were talked about at each. I'm not going to go at length about this, but, there was a lot I came out of this show pretty excited about, and it's very interesting that, because what I did watch was Giant Bomb's videos where they talked over the press conferences, and it's very interesting how, especially in certain cases, you're beginning to see more of the disconnect between fans and the press. Like, there were things like the Sony press conference that the Giant Bomb guys by and large thought was terrible. I didn't think it was as good as some other people did, but I actually thought it was excellent. It was still very excellent. And they were like, wow, that was terrible. And they were quite surprised. Dan Reichen particularly was quite surprised how everyone was telling him the exact opposite of what the people around him thought. And, well, I wonder if that's going to make any of them think a little bit, because when you're so vastly disconnected from your audience, maybe that should say something. But we all know the games press is all about, you know, making sure that everything is someone else's fault. So anyway, we'll get to that part. So yeah, the first one up was EA's show. They did their own thing. They did do it on the Sunday, so it fell in the timeline of E3, but they were doing it at their own separate event, which was interesting. It was pretty well done. It looked like a snazzy press conference, no doubt about that. But what did they show? They showed Titanfall 2. I liked the first Titanfall. I thought it was very good, but I got bored of it very, very quickly because there wasn't enough content in it, and the PC community went real quick for that game. But the second one, it looks like they've learned a lot from the first one. There's going to be a campaign this time. I actually would like to see a campaign in that universe. I think they could do something interesting and different, and not in the kind of really stupid Call of Duty Infinite Warfare way. I mean, I'm sure Titanfall is going to be not exactly highbrow storytelling, but it's this sort of dystopian far future where it's not as far in as Infinite Warfare, but there's mechs on planets fighting. And I actually would like to see a story told in that universe. I think that could be cool. And there's just going to be more multiplayer content, which is great. I will probably give Titanfall another chance. I hope this one does better. Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm looking forward to. I like Mass Effect a lot, even though the way the third one ended was an insult. I did like that series a lot. However, they barely talked about it, and for a game that's supposed to be out before the end of this fiscal year, which means sometime before the end of the first quarter next year, they didn't have a lot to show, which that worries me a little bit. Sports, I don't care about sports. Star Wars Dyson Motive? Oh, yeah. So EA is doing a bunch of Star Wars stuff. They talked about Battlefront that's coming. I didn't care for Battlefront. Neither did a lot of hardcore gamers, but it sold stupidly well. So they're obviously going to do more content for that, whatever. I am very curious about the 2 new Star Wars games that are being done at Visceral and Respawn. They showed one very short sequence from the Visceral game that Amy Hennig is leading. It looks a lot like Star Wars meets Uncharted, and you know what? I'm cool with that. That would be all right. I could get behind that. I don't know what Respawn's making. I presume it's something multiplayer focused. Couldn't tell you, but you know, Respawn's got some talent, so I'm very curious about that. And of course, Battlefield 1. I like the Battlefield series. I know a bunch of coworkers will be playing Battlefield 1, so I will be picking that up regardless. From what people are saying, it doesn't look like it's that different. It's Battlefield that plays pretty much the same way, just with different weapons and horses this time. It doesn't look like they went doesn't look like they used the much earlier period of war to really change up the formula of how it plays, which is a little disappointing, but it's a ways off and there's more to come on that. So we'll see what happens with it. So that was EA for the most part. I think they had a decent showing, but yeah, as usual, a lot of their press conference was focused on sports games and some mobile stuff and that I don't care about. So there's only a small section there. The Bethesda show, Bethesda killed it last year. Their first attempt at a press conference, I thought they did really good. I think this one was very good as well. I'm curious what Quake Champions is. Yeah, it's very clear from the way they explained it. They're trying to make an arena shooter that borrows very heavily from the success of Overwatch. I don't mind that. I think that's going to become its own genre. Basically, that sort of hero shooter thing. I'm curious to see what they do with it. It's being co-developed by Saber, who has made a couple of good games and some other not good games at all. But we'll see what happens with that. Fallout 4 DLC, I still haven't beaten Fallout 4. It's not grabbing me the way the last two did. I probably won't play any DLC for that. If I do, it'll be super cheap. Skyrim Special Edition, money press. The new Prey game, I'm very curious about that. I really love that clip of Prey 2 they showed before Bethesda screwed over Human Head Studios a few years ago. This is going to be an entirely new game, and it's being done by a second team at Arcane. Arcane, they make some good stuff, so I don't know what it's going to be, but the little they showed looked very good. I'd like to see more. Doom DLC, if it's not a single-player add-on, I'm not interested. The multiplayer in that game is just it's not bad, it's just bog standard and uninteresting, so I want campaign content for that. And people were so high on that campaign, I wonder if now they're thinking about doing that, even if they weren't before. And of course, Dishonored 2. I love the first Dishonored. I want to say, I forget what it was that year, but it was either my third or fourth game of that year. Dishonored 2 looks amazing. They're running on a new engine. They're not running on Unreal anymore. It's going to be a new in-house engine. And it just looks like Dishonored 1 blown out further, which is perfect. I loved Dishonored. And it looks like you're going to be able to play the campaign as either Corvo or Emily. And it kind of looks like there's going to be an entirely separate campaign, or at least a separate storyline for each, basically meaning you're going to be playing it twice to get everything, which is really cool. I had no interest in going through Dishonored again and playing with a bad ending. I got the good ending the first time, the low chaos ending. But yeah, it looks really good. I can't wait for it. It's coming this year. I'll be there on PC. Absolutely. So I thought Bethesda had a very good show. Interesting omissions. Battlecry wasn't there. And apparently Battlecry Studios has been largely dark for the last year. So a lot of people are wondering if that's even still a game. It didn't look very good, so I don't know. They talked about the Elder Scrolls card game thing, which I guess is already out. Don't care. Elder Scrolls Online, don't care. So that's just me. Microsoft, Gears of War 4. I love Gears. I will play more of that, absolutely. Battlefield 1, Forza Horizon 3. So we're going to divert here for a little minute. The one thing that I find very interesting, and Phil Spencer talked about this on Giant Bomb's show, is the fact now that Microsoft is going to be putting all of their first-party games out on PC as well as console, which means PC gamers who have higher-end machines that can do higher res, higher graphics, higher frame rates, now get the ability to do that, which is very, very awesome. They are unfortunately going to be UWP games. They are making improvements to UWP, but it still has a long way to go. Shut the hell up, Team Sweeney. It's a competitor. Stop whining. But there is a lot to do with UWP still. The thing that I found interesting is Microsoft quietly came out after the show and went, by the way, we're going to try to sell these games on Steam as well. We're not going to force you to buy them through the Windows Store, which I did not expect. I mean, they want to use UWP as a vector to push the Windows Store, so it kind of shocked me a little bit that you're going to be able to buy them through Steam. That said, it doesn't really matter, because I'm sure it's just going to be like when you buy Ubisoft games on Steam. You double-click it, it launches Uplay anyway and just plays the game. All this is going to do is it's going to download through Steam, and then launch the Windows Store app through the Windows Store. It's still going to require Windows 10, all that jazz, so it's not going to change anything. What I do like about that, though, is it means Steam sales, and it means possibly Green Man Gaming will carry them with promotional codes, so you won't always have to pay full price. You will have multiple stores to go through. You won't have to go through just one place. Maybe you should look into that, Team Sweeney. Anyway, so every Microsoft first-party game that I'm talking about here is coming to PC, and also if you buy it, sadly only if you buy it digitally, not on a disc, you get both versions. So if you buy it digitally, you get to play it either on the Xbox One or the PC. Either way, you don't pay extra. A1, I like that. Also, cloud saves, cloud achievements, cloud progression, the whole bit, syncs seamlessly between the two things. Good job, guys. That's exactly what I want to see out of this thing. With the amount of deserved stick Microsoft has taken for pushing people so hard into Windows 10, this is a way you earn some goodwill back, and I think it's very, very smart. So needless to say, all of these games that are coming to PC, that's where I'll be buying them, because this PC feeds over to the TV that's behind the shelf here, and so I can play on the TV with a controller anyway, on the couch, at 60 frames a second with higher detail. Perfect. So yeah, Gears of War 4, I love Gears. I will play more Gears for sure. Battlefield 1, we already talked about that. Forza Horizon 3, oh, that game in 60 frames a second, I cannot wait. I loved Forza 2. You know, I'm not a frame rate snob. It played fine at 30, but 60 is higher than 30, so that's going to be really good. Recore looks interesting. I'm less interested in it than I was last year, but some of the concepts of it, with the fact that you have a companion whose abilities are tied to like what core, like power thing you put in it, very neat. I do want to try that out for sure. Final Fantasy 15, if it's really cool, maybe, but I haven't cared about Final Fantasy in a long time. They showed more Killer Instinct content. They finally got Killer Instinct in better shape on the PC. The PC version's very good. Inside, that's the new game from Playdead, i.e. Manic Depressive Games. I liked Limbo. I also liked only playing Limbo once, but Inside looks very cool. We Happy Few looks fucked. Like, absolutely just, holy crap, that game looks ridiculous. I'm also very excited to play it, but it looks whack. Very good. Gwent Witcher card game. I don't care about card games on PC. If I want to play cards, I'll play cards. I don't play video games to play cards. You know, I don't give a damn about Hearthstone or anything like that. Also, Gwent in The Witcher 3 was really, really simplistic, and it was super pay to win in the sense that you could buy better cards in the game, not with real money, but with, like, you could buy better cards as items in the game that made you objectively superior at it. I don't know how they're going to balance that for the real world, but you know what? People are super hyped on it. Not for me. You guys have fun. Tekken 7, I never liked Tekken. I just don't think it's a very good series. That's just my opinion. Again, people excited about it, cool. Dead Rising 4, I haven't played Dead Rising 3 yet. I still want to. I'd like to buy it cheap and co-op it on the PC. I thought it didn't sell very well, but it's been very interesting this year to see the fact that Capcom is actually is interested in making games that are not just remasters. That's cool. I hope it's good. Dead Rising 3, as I understand it, most people liked it quite a bit, so I hope it's I hope this is cool. And again, it's coming to PC as well, so day and date, but it's like exclusive to Windows 10 for a certain period, or to the Windows 10 store or something for a certain period of time. That's going to piss people off, but whatever. What they showed of Scalebound looked janky, but it also looked like a Platinum game, and I'm very excited for that. Platinum, sadly, has had some ups and downs lately with some of the license crap they've done, which most people say they just did that for the paycheck so they can make the bigger and better stuff. I hope that's true. I really do. I hope their quality just isn't starting to drop. But Scalebound looks cool, and it's Hideki Kamiya, so it's going to be insane, and I hope they get it right. Sea of Thieves I've always had interest in, but I was always a little unsure about it, but it's a new Rare game which grabs my attention, and people who have played it say that it's really good. It's fully co-op, and it's like a pirate loot game, which I could very much get into. If I could find a solid crew of people to play with, I think that would be really good. That's one I'll be picking up on PC as well. And of course, you can play it cross-play with Xbox One people, which is even better. State of Decay 2, I liked what I saw of State of Decay 1 and then never played it. That's a game I really am not interested in playing solo. I would really like to play that with people. Guess what they did? It's going to have co-op in it. Perfect. I will absolutely play that. That looks that looks cool. Like, I like the idea of of a survival game, but it's more of a PvE survival game. It's not about screwing people in this horrible dark libertarian world like DayZ or something like that is. So I hope it's good. I hope it ships in better condition than State of Decay 1 did, but we shall see. And then there was Halo Wars 2. I haven't played the first Halo Wars. I have it. I bought it for Xbox 360, brand new, sealed out of a bin for like $7.99 at one point. I should fire, maybe I'll stream that someday. I should fire it up and play it, because people said it was actually a half-decent console RTS game. And Halo Wars 2 is being done by Creative Assembly, which I find really strange that a Sega internal studio is doing a RTS for Microsoft, exclusively for Microsoft, but Sega needs the money, I guess. So, yeah, I'm curious about it. It's probably something I'd buy on sale later, and only if I like the first one. But as I understand it, even though Ensemble Studios closed not long after Halo Wars shipped, I think it sold well. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, that was the Microsoft thing. They talked about Project Scorpio a little bit, which is the next much more powerful Xbox One. They really didn't say much other than the fact that it exists, it's more powerful, and it's a year and a half away. So we'll hear more about that in the future. This new model that it looks like they're going for, where consoles are going to be more like phones, which is that it's going to be a single platform that will always work with the previous stuff, but will evolve every couple of years rather than every 4 or 5 years, here's a whole new box. I think it's interesting, and truth be told, with how quickly consoles are getting outpaced by the PC and how much cheaper a decent gaming PC is beginning to get, I think this is something they had to do. I don't think the original cycle of sitting for 4 or 5 years is something you can do anymore. But I wonder how well it's going to work. It's a paradigm shift. There's no doubt about that. And even though these consoles are doing better than the last ones, there are a lot of people around who are still saying, well, do we really need consoles anymore? Do people care about consoles anymore? This is going to be a very hard sell, It's going to be very easy for them to screw it up. I hope they don't. That said, I don't know, I'm about to buy a 1080 for this computer, which I just built recently, and I don't know if I'm going to jump on the newer consoles, especially since almost everything that Microsoft has coming out is going to come to the PC anyway. It doesn't really matter in that situation. So I want to see it. I want to see what it's about, but I don't know. They're going to have to sell me on it for sure. And, of course, the Xbox One S, it's the Xbox One, but not small moon-sized, which is very cool. I'm not going to buy one because I don't need it, but if you haven't bought one yet, that is a good time to get in, for sure. I like that. So I missed the Ubisoft press conference, but I've seen most of what they were talking about in terms of games. I don't care about Just Dance. Ghost Recon Crackfest, or Coke Fest. I think it looks neat. Again, it's a game I'm going to want to play with people. It seems to be designed mostly around that, but it looks fun. It doesn't look like it has really anything to do with Ghost Recon at all, at least not the Ghost Recon people know. But, yeah, I think it'll be all right. Yeah, I hope it's cool. I'm looking forward to it. South Park: The Fractured But Whole. I actually really like the last South Park game. I haven't paid attention to South Park as a show in years and years and years. But I actually really liked The Stick of Truth. I thought it was good fun. And this looks like it's going to be more of that. Oh, if you haven't seen that reaction video of the Giant Bomb guys, namely Austin and Alex, reacting to the fact that PC Principle is in it, you need to watch that because, oh geez, the awkwardness. Brad and Jeff thought it was funny. The game was funny, but both of Alex and Austin, who are the known perpetually offended types of Giant Bomb, got very offended by seeing it, and Alex was like, that's a character from the last season, which was not good. And Dan's like, I don't know, I thought that season was all right. And Alex goes like, no. And, oh, God, you should see the awkward looks. Oh, geez, it's something. Yeah, frankly, the fact that it offended Alex makes me more interested because, honestly, he needs to get over himself. Yeah, The Division Underground and Survival DLC. I'm playing The Division right now. That game is Destiny in a city. It really is, and I don't really say that as a good thing. I didn't like Destiny at all. I played way too much of it before realizing that. I'm going to mainline and finish the story in The Division because, well, I bought it. but I'm going to uninstall that game as soon as that's over. I don't really care about the Dark Zone. I don't care about the DLC. The player population of that game has dropped by almost 90%. It's actually very hard for me to find other humans to do missions with right now, so not interested. Eagle Flight is a VR-only thing. I had been meaning to write a blog post on VR and what I think about its mainstream prospects for the longest time. My buddy he got a Rift. He pre-ordered a Rift. And he brought it into work this week, and I actually finally got to try VR for the first time. And it's neat. It's definitely cool. I am not as hype on it as a lot of other people are, which I didn't think I would be, frankly. Maybe there's a little bit of bias going into it. I think it's a neat technology. I also think it's way too expensive for most people, and I don't think in its current form it's got any chance of mainstream success. But it could get there, and it's nice to see. Ubisoft likes to jump on every new technology and dive in with both feet and see what works. It's good to see they're still doing that, especially since they're under threat of a hostile takeover right now. Star Trek Bridge Crew, same thing. This looks really cool. It's a VR game where you're literally controlling the bridge of a starship. Looks rad. Not enough for me to buy a headset, but looks rad. For Honor, which is their crazy sword fighting thing, looks really good. Looks very different, which I like, and is not something you see from Ubisoft very often. By the way, can I just say how insane it is that even today, supposed journalists in the gaming press still don't know how to pronounce Ubisoft? It's Ubisoft, not Ubisoft. Their name is a combination of the words ubiquitous and software. Look it up, you idiots. Oh my God. How people who claim to be journalists don't even know how to pronounce the name of the second biggest publisher. It blows my friggin' mind. Anyway. But yeah, For Honor looks very interesting. I'm curious about it. I'm really more interested in the single player for that game, for the story, the campaign. I'm sure the multiplayer will be good, but that's not what's going to really interest me in that. For Honor almost looks like it's trying to do what Rise it looks like what Rise maybe should have been if Rise was good. Like Rise I didn't think was that horrible, but it was not great. This kind of looks like it's going for what should have been there. Trials of the Blood Dragon, man, what a disappointment. I want another Far Cry Blood Dragon game so bad, and instead they took that universe and put it in Trials. Like, no, that's not what I want. Blood Dragon was so good, and we haven't gotten another one, and Trials is too hard for me. I don't want Trials with that aesthetic. I want a new Blood Dragon, god damn it. I was very surprised to see that there's going to be a sequel to Grow Home called Grow Up, which is neat. Grow Home, which I've still been meaning to play, actually, was this weird little experimental game that Reflections did. And I guess it did really well, actually. I know it was very critically acclaimed, and I guess it sold well, too, because they're making another one, which is all right. It surprised me, but I'm happy that's being done. I hope it runs a little better on the consoles next time. Watch Dogs 2, of course. Watch Dogs 1 had problems. There is no doubt about that, but I did not dislike that game as much as so many other people seem to have. I thought it was okay. Yeah, the protagonist is a massive douchebag, and yeah, the hacking stuff was underutilized and not really realized fully, and yes, the game looked half as good as the trailers made it seem, but I still thought it was a good time. I had fun with it. But it had the same problem that the first Assassin's Creed did. The first Assassin's Creed was a really cool idea that was clearly not fully realized, and then Assassin's Creed 2, it got really, really good. I'm hoping that's what they are going to do this time. I hope that Watch Dogs 2 is going to take that core formula that they were working on and turn it into the sort of thing that more matches the grandiose vision we were promised. If it doesn't, I think that franchise is dead. I don't think people will give them another chance at it. But I'm willing to. I really like the idea of a modern game where hacking is your weapon. I hope this game has more of that. I hope there is less traditional gun combat. I hope it's way more about utilizing your hacking powers to evade your pursuers and attackers rather than just pulling out a gun and shooting at them. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to give it a chance for sure. And then Steep, it's a snowboarding game or something like that. I'm not really interested in those, and from what I've heard, the first impressions of it were not very good, so whatever. And then lastly, there's the Sony show. Again, I thought this show was really good, but some critics didn't. It was game. There was very, very little talking. Very little, I don't want to say no grandeur. Like, this had a little bit of the Sony pretentiousness to it because it had the live orchestra that sort of introduced all the speakers and stuff, but it was a really nice audible touch, actually. And the fact that this orchestra was actually live scoring over the trailers that they were playing was really impressive. I thought that was quite a logistical feat, and they did it really well. But I like the fact that it was relatively short. It was just game, info, and just said, hey, we're not here really to talk. Let's just let the games speak for themselves. That was really great. And some of the games that we saw, like the new God, I did not expect to see a new God of War there. And I did not expect it to be a complete reboot that kind of looks like The Last of Us meets Dark Souls. And then God of War is now dealing with Norse mythology instead of Greek mythology. Like, okay. And I remember everyone, including like almost everyone at Giant Bomb except Dan, is sick to death of God of War. And they all saw this and were like, all right, I'll play that. It looked really neat, I have to say. I want to see more of that. I hope that's good. Days Gone, which came out of Sony Bend, which I thought was interesting because Bend has done almost exclusively portable games. The last thing they did was the Uncharted game on the Vita. And this looks like a big-ass AAA... It's a survival zombie game that, like, I guess your character's a biker, like a biker gang type. And it's one of these things where it's like, look how many zombies we can put on screen, because he's getting pursued by like 100 at once that are all independently on the screen. Technically impressive, but they didn't really show much about what this is about. It was a guy who walked into a, it looked very Last of Us-y. He walked into sort of a factory area and then had to run away with 1 billion zombies after him. I was like, that's technically cool, but what's the game about? But it was clearly very early, so we'll see what happens with that. The Last Guardian, still want to know what that game is, but I probably won't play it because I know that the creature in that game is either going to die horribly or be severely injured trying to save his human companion, and my stupid animal peril anxiety thing will not be able to handle that, and I will lose my mind. So I probably won't be able to play it. Detroit Become Human. Say what you will about David Cage, and I could say plenty, but I have played all of his games, and I have always found them interesting and experimental if they are very high on themselves and have a lot of problems, especially with how they convey things. I just like the setting of Detroit. It's a relatively near future where androids are among us, and you're actually playing an android. And it kind of looks like he's taking elements from both Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, like sort of the things that worked from those games, and combining them into this other universe. I want to see it. I always want to see what he makes, even if in the end, like, I didn't mind Beyond Two Souls. I actually thought it was okay, but it also was, it had some rough spots. So did Heavy Rain in particular. But I always like them. Everything he puts out, I still like it in spite of itself. So I want to see what that is. Resident Evil 7, I mean, I've never been a big Resident Evil guy, and I'm not a horror guy. This looks like it's going much further back to the well of scaring the shit out of you. Don't know if I want that, but we'll see. Then they did PlayStation VR, and not nearly as much PlayStation VR as I was expecting. Again, for something that's not too far away, they didn't talk about it very much. They showed that Farpoint game, which looks cool, and then it was a bunch of experiences, like the Battlefront VR mission, X-Wing mission, Batman Arkham VR, Final Fantasy VR experience. All these things that I'm just like, it's the same problem the Oculus and the Vive have. You want me to shell out hundreds of dollars for a headset for a bunch of gimmicky tech demos? Like, no, I'm not going to buy one of those for that. Like, you got to show me real, proper games if you want me to invest in one of these things. And it doesn't really look like they pulled that out. And I said that Oculus and Vive should have waited to ship until there were more real games to show people on them. And I'm beginning to think PSVR should do the same thing, because just, if you ship this thing, even if it's only $349 or $399, and all it is a bunch of demos, no one's going to buy in the quantities you want. And without the quantities you want, no one's going to be incentivized to make games because there's no way to get their money back. So I think they should. I'm sure Sony is funding a lot of VR development, but I think maybe they should have waited until they had more in the can. Similarly, we saw almost no indie games at any of these shows this year beyond a short sizzle reel, which was a real surprise given that Sony in particular did the thing a couple of years ago where they had the big ring of indie developers that came out showing their games. They gave indies no attention at all this year. And I understand that they've already cemented PlayStation 4 as the first console of choice for indie games, but you should still be encouraging and, you know, hyping up that community, I would think. It's a little weird that almost everybody didn't say much about that stuff. I don't know. I find that very odd. They showed Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. It looks like more Call of Duty Insanity. Because I have Stockholm Syndrome with that series, I'll play the campaign and see how stupid it is. Modern Warfare Remastered, I really want to play that. I'm not prepared to pay for a $100 special edition to get it. Fuck you, Activision. The remastered Crash Bandicoots was interesting. Oh man, when Sean Layden walked out on stage with that Crash shadow behind him, and he said, "Thanks to our partners at Activision," everyone was like, "Oh, a new Crash game!" He was like, "Crash 1, 2, and 3 remastered, and Crash is going to be in Skylanders," and you just heard the whole place go, Phew! Like you just felt the air leave the room. Man, it was awkward. It was so funny. I don't give a damn about Skylanders, but you know what? I have never played a Crash game. And I've heard people talk in reverence about the PlayStation 1 era Crash games. I'll play the remasters when they come out. Maybe I'll stream them. I'd like to try Crash out for the first time that way. I think that would be interesting. I'll give them a shot. If you're going to give them to me and they're cheap, hey, why not? I'll do it. Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, Lego games. Death Stranding, also known as Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus. The insane new hyper teaser from Hideo Kojima. I like Hideo Kojima's brand of insanity. What can I say? I love the Metal Gear series. I will play whatever he does next, especially without Konami on his back. Yeah, it'll probably be like the PlayStation 12 by the time it comes out, but I will absolutely play it. I have no idea what I watched in that trailer, but I'm in. I'm in. Also, that entrance he made was just, oh man. It's so perfect. So perfect for him. And yeah, they also showed Spider-Man. Insomniac developed Spider-Man, which is the first time I've really cared about a Spider-Man game. I know some of the previous Spider-Man games are well revered. I had no interest in them, but I will play just about anything with an Insomniac badge on it. This kind of looks like they're almost repurposing the tech from Sunset Overdrive in a way that can work with Spider-Man. I'd be fine with that. Sunset Overdrive was my game of 2014. So I'll check it out. I hope it's good. I know some people who are way into Spider-Man as well and Spider-Man games, so that will be pretty cool. I like the Sony show. I really did. I found the lack of VR coverage suspicious. I found the lack of indie coverage disappointing, but they showed AAA game after AAA game. They showed a lot of new IPs. They showed a lot of new stuff, and they showed that the PlayStation 4 has a lot of untapped horsepower in it still. There's a lot that developers haven't learned how to do with that, which I still find weird because the PS4 is basically a PC, but whatever. They've shown that there's a lot left to do, and that they've shown that they're not afraid to take a franchise like God of War that people were getting tired of, but was still selling very well for them, and completely turn it on its ear and basically turn it into a completely different game. Like that new rebooted God of War looks nothing like the other ones. And I like the other ones. Even God of War Ascension I thought was all right. But I'm very excited that they're willing to take an established thing and just say, all right, we're flipping it over and we're doing something else. So I like that. Good on them. And then Nintendo just showed Pokemon, don't give a damn. And they showed Zelda, which looks really good. I've been up and down on Zelda. I like the Zelda series in general, but I've skipped a lot of them. I've been meaning to go through. I have the Wind Waker HD version on the Wii U. I've been meaning to go back through that. Maybe I'll stream that at some point. I would like to play through that. But this really does look like open world Zelda. To the point where I believe they said on a stream that you could actually, if you wanted to, and you had the means to do it, you could start that game and walk right to the final boss if you wanted, and just be like, I'm going to go kill the final boss and end the game. I'm sure that would be exceedingly difficult, but you have the freedom to do that, and it looks like you're going to have the freedom to approach the dungeons in any order. Very, like, you know, Bethesda Skyrim-esque. It's chart your own path. Go and do what you do as you find it, and that's really exciting out of a Zelda game. That's the kind of... It's not revolutionary in the sense that a lot of other games have already done it, but it's very revolutionary for Zelda and Nintendo, and this is a big step up for that franchise, and something I think it really needed. And Nintendo won't put it out until they're convinced they've done it right. That much everybody already knows about them. And the fact that you'll be still able to get it on the Wii U, even though it's also coming for the NX, which is where I will play it, it looks great. it did more with open world than I thought it would. Like the fact that you can climb any surface, that there's deep crafting systems and everything else in it. I really didn't think they were going to go that down the open world rabbit hole with it, but they really did. Oh boy, I hope it's good. I really, really do. That was sort of the bulk of it in terms of the games that were shown at the press conferences. There were some other stuff shown. They showed a few things like, Agents of Mayhem, which is the new Volition title that's not a Saints Row game, but kind of takes place in there, I guess, sort of. That wasn't shown to the public other than a pre-rendered trailer. Want to see what those guys do next. Saints Row has kind of run its course, but it was also a really, really good series as well, so I'd like to see what that is. There was some other stuff too that I'm completely blanking on now, but there were some other stuff. Unfortunately, no one really went and covered Devolver Digital, who always does a show like across the street from E3. Wish I could have seen more of that because Devolver is one of my favorite small publishers. I am not interested in everything they put out, but I'm interested in a lot of what they put out. And damn it, I want to see more Mother Russia Bleeds. Damn it. Oh, that game looks just... Oh, it looks amazing. But there was a lot to be excited about this year. So every year, various retailers in Canada tend to do big E3 promos where you can usually get like big discounts on games that are shown at E3. What I do with those sales is I always pre-order every game I think I could possibly be interested in. And then before they ship, I cancel the ones I decide I'm not going to want, and then the ones I do want I get for a decent discount. The promos weren't as good this year. Amazon had discounts, but only on a handful of titles, and Best Buy's promo this year was to give 25 times reward zone points, which is the same amount of money in the sense that it's still like $20 to $30 per game, but you can only spend reward zone points on future purchases. You can't put the savings towards your current purchase. So you're still buying the games at full price. You just get a bunch of credit that you can spend later to get something else discounted, which is definitely not nearly as good. But a lot of the games that I already saw this year that I was excited for, including stuff like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I actually missed. That was not on the Sony list here, but Horizon Zero Dawn, again, looks amazing. Another open world game, dino robots. I still don't know what the hell it's about, but it looks great, and it's Guerrilla, so those guys know how to make an engine. A lot of those games I already had pre-ordered cheap from last year's E3, so I didn't add in that many this year, but I did have a few that I put in. So yeah, there's definitely less quantity at this year's E3. There's less. I came out interested in a lower number of games than I had before, but at the same time, the quality looks like it's better. It looks like a lot of these companies, especially the first parties, are putting out less stuff, but putting way more effort into the stuff that they're putting out, and they're setting the bar for those titles individually to be much higher, which is a good way of approaching it. I would rather have fewer games that are really, really good than a ton of games that are mediocre. I think most people would probably agree with that. So I hope that strategy works out. Technologically, it was it's going to be an interesting year. This transition Microsoft is making to making everything cross-platform with Windows 10, I am 100% behind as someone who owns all the consoles, but will always play games on PC first if I can, if the quality of the port is good. I'm very glad to see they're doing that. VR was definitely not pushed as hard as I thought, especially considering that it's out now. PSVR is not out, but the Oculus and Vive are out there. And the response to it has been pretty tepid. I mean, there's not a lot of good software out there. And even a lot of the critics, like I was one of the people who was getting sick and tired of everybody on Giant Bomb for forever saying, oh, wouldn't X game be better in an Oculus? And I was like, oh, would you shut up with that? But now that most of them are kind of like, yeah, it's all right, I guess. The technology's good, but there's not much to play on it. And people who, like Dan Reichert, who just a few months ago was saying, oh, I'm going to buy a Vive and an Oculus at launch, no question, is now kind of like, yeah, I'll probably wait till the next version comes out and until there's good games on it, which is my opinion as well. And the hype has definitely died down a lot. Like, it's cool that this stuff is hitting, and I still hope they figure out a way to make it successful, but this is kind of what I predicted, which is that it would come out and not be a hit, and that most people would think it was a novelty that they would get over very quickly, and that certainly seems to be what's happened. So, yeah, I hope they can figure it out, but they've got to step it up. They've got to get games on it, good games on it, and quick. You know, a game that lasts 20 minutes before it gets old, or it's just another tech demo, that's not how you're going to sell a $700 piece of kit that requires a $1,200 PC to the mainstream. It's just not going to be. You got to have good stuff that's got good fidelity and is good to play in VR. People aren't going to buy it for tiny experiences. Not in quantity. You know, and I'm a person who is in a point in my life where, like, I have a computer that can run VR in its sleep, and I could afford a VR headset if I wanted. I have the money right now. I could go out and buy a Vive or an Oculus. I'm lucky in that I have that capability right now. No interest. I'm buying a better GPU instead, something that can benefit every single game rather than just a few. You know, buying a 1080 Strix is my stupid, you know, spending too much money purchase, not buying a Vive or a Rift. So yeah, they got a job ahead of them, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, it was a weird show this year. Good, lots that came out of it that has me excited for sure. There's going to be another busy fall, and I've got a stupid backlog to tackle already, and it is going to be a busy fall. So you know, wallets are going to be hurting, but there's a lot of good stuff to play, which is good. And this is just, you know, this is largely the big AAA industry stuff. There's tons of crazy good indie stuff coming this year too that doesn't get showcased at something like E3. So that's going to be a whole other ball of wax. So there's a lot coming for sure. Of course, and this is why I said we're going to save the Angry Parallax to the end. Hang on. I need a shot for this. So, as everybody knows, you don't need me to explain this. Literally the day that E3 started, just before, a few hours before EA's show, the horrible terrorist event in Florida took place. And I think most of the people who were doing shows at E3 paid tribute to that in the most professional way possible. Most of the press conferences spoke about it. I don't think EA did, which I thought was a little strange. Maybe they did and I missed it. I'm not sure. But most of them spoke about it. A few of them did the moment of silence thing. Most of them wore the multicolored ribbon things, which I thought was very, very nice and very respectful and a good way to do that. And was, I mean, it was a horrible thing, and it is unfortunate that you have to go from the same day seeing that to being like, all right, let's sell some video games. But, you know, the world doesn't stop because of one tragedy. I mean, if the world stops because of a terrorist act, guess what? That's what they want. And that's sort of how they win. The way you don't give them the satisfaction is by having life go on. Not that you don't pay respect to what happened, but you make sure the world doesn't stop either. But what really got me going was that the games press, who are... Just when I think the games press cannot get more absurd and more narcissistic and more... just... I don't even know what to say. Just more insufferable. We saw another huge group of articles from all the usual suspects, not only saying that the industry should be ashamed because they didn't delay or in some cases even cancel E3, but that the industry should be ashamed because E3 was a show full of games that glorify guns on the day that a major gun-related tragedy took place. To which I saw when I read most of that, the only thing I could think of is, what the fuck decade am I in right now? Did I go back in time 10 years when Jack Thompson was getting quoted in all the news media saying, without any proof whatsoever, that somehow games unquestionably caused young people to be violent and inspired violent crimes, and the entire games press laughed in his face and banded together to actually get him disbarred. Because that's what was happening 10 years ago. And now many of the same people who stood up for that, and I don't just mean the same people as in the same outlets, many of the same people, the same writers who were rightly tearing him to pieces 10 years ago because of this insane rhetoric, are now the ones sitting there saying games cause violence. That's literally what they were saying. Like, have your business models become so broken? Have your websites become so desperate? Has your level of honesty and ethics shrunk so low that you will actually resort to pulling out Jack Thompson's old arguments without a single shred of irony in them just to drive clicks? Or have you gone so far down the regressive left, perpetually offended rabbit hole that you're actually now believing this garbage? I don't know what it is. I honestly don't. I don't really care what it is, because if you actually believe it, you're wrong and you're an idiot. And if you're doing it for business reasons, then you're just an unethical piece of garbage. Like, why are you people even in this industry? I know most of you are shit writers who couldn't get work as real journalists, you know, if you offered to work for free. That's half the reason that you're here, is you think you're world-class writers who just haven't had your genius realized yet. No, you're actually shit bloggers is what you are, most of you. But like, I can't believe I could not believe some of what I was reading and who it was coming from. Like, if you think that the games industry is that poisonous, if you think all that games are a thing that teaches young white men to be violent and sexist, then why are you even fucking here? Because guess what? The games are not changing. All the games that you shat on over this E3, they're all going to sell really well in spite of you, because nobody in quantity outside of your little echo chamber in your comment section actually gives a shit what you think. The industry doesn't give a shit what you think. And these games are going to sell regardless, so you're not having any real impact. So if you actively hate the product that you're supposed to have built your careers around and the audience that consumes it so much, why are you here? Like, get out of this industry and go do something else. You know, go write for Jezebel, go write for friggin' the Mary Sue, go write for one of these other garbage websites that are just about screaming about how offended they are all the time. Because you're not helping anyone here and nobody wants you here anymore. Seriously, people like Chris Plant, you're a fucking embarrassment to any shred of journalism that is left in this industry. Get the fuck out of the industry. You're a bad writer, and some of the garbage that you've written, the thing that you wrote about that NASA scientist who wore the shirt, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You're a goddamn embarrassment. Go away. Nobody wants you people here anymore. Like, if the only thing you can do when you're being paid to go cover the biggest video game show of the year, arguably the thing that probably drives the most traffic to your website, if the only thing of value you can find to write about there is preaching 10-year-old rhetoric that has been completely disproven time and time again, fuck off. Seriously, nobody wants you around anymore. I sure as hell don't. This is why your websites are dying and everybody's leaving, because everybody's sick of your bullshit. They want to hear about the games they're interested in, not how they're bad people for liking them. Like, go away. That's all I can say. Just go the fuck away. Oh, like, the sooner, like, you know, Gawker is bankrupt, and this, unfortunately, a lot of the Gawker sites are probably going to continue on because someone is buying them, because of course they will. But Gawker has failed. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but I sure hope Vox Media is the next to fail. That site is a fucking cancer for journalism. Yeah, like, YouTube and Twitch are eating your lunch, and as many problems as YouTube and Twitch have as a whole, both as platforms and in terms of who the big influencers are in those industries, I would take them 10 times over before I would take you having any power in this. I used to say, I don't want the PewDiePies and the Game Grumps and that of the world to become the new face of games journalism, and I don't. But you know what? I would rather have those people than Kotaku and Polygon and all of these other garbage websites that talk about this, because you know what? People like PewDiePie and the Game Grumps, at least they love games, and at least they actually love gamers, and they actually are proud to call themselves gamers. They don't draw a paycheck from the gaming industry just to shit on it constantly. If that's the price of making sure that you people are gone, at this point, I think it's actually worth it, because you're all embarrassments to the industry. Anyone who was posting that garbage, you're fucking pathetic. And the sooner you are out of this industry, the better everyone is. I'm so fucking sick of this garbage. It's been going on for years now, and it's just, no matter how much the success continues to shrink for these people, they just keep doubling down on the stupid, and they keep doubling down on things that don't work. And I don't understand why there aren't business people standing there going, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, I guess this new way they're doing things must generate more clicks and more ad revenue than it did before, because otherwise the business people would tell them to stop. But it's a bubble. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And when it pops, all these sites are going to fail, and they're all going to absolutely deserve it. And good riddance, because fuck all you people. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. I've been so mad about that all week. I'm so sick of the game. I'm so sick of the games press. I really am. I'm just so tired of it. And I am so tired of being told I'm a bad person because I like the games I like and they don't happen to be the games they like. Like, fuck you, seriously. Anyway, so I wanted to say that till the end because, of course, let's save the anger and rage till the end, right? Because I don't care about the hits. I care about being honest. Imagine that. Anyway, so that was E3 this year. This is another long video. These E3 rambles are always super long, so that's the way it goes. The blog entry will be shorter. I'll probably write it in the next couple of days. But overall, in terms of what the show showed us, I think it's good, and I think there's a lot to be excited about. Less than there was before, but still a lot, And as someone who has a very busy life and already can't keep up with the games that are coming, I don't necessarily mind if there's a little bit less, as long as it's good. And it looks like that's going to be the case. And, I just tore the gaming press a new one, but if there's one thing that's very obvious is no matter how much influence they think they have and no matter how hard they try, this industry will continue to succeed completely in spite of them because they don't have any power. They just think they do. And that's fine by me. They can sit there and scream all they want, and they can scream themselves into irrelevancy. So enjoy that. But it's still a great time to be playing video games, whether you're into indie games or AAA, and I'm into both. There's lots of good stuff. There's lots of good stuff coming, I think, and it's going to be a good year. So happy gaming in 2016. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully you guys are too. But leave some stuff in the comments below. Tell me what you guys thought of E3 this year. Did you like what some of what you saw there? What games did you like? What games didn't you like? What do you think about all this gaming press malarkey? I'm very curious. I'm always like to have a discussion with that. I like to hear what people on my channel think beyond just me, So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked what you saw here, as usual, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. There's going to be a little bit more content coming soon. As I said in an earlier channel update, I'm going to be taking things easy for the next couple of weeks, but we'll see what happens. Hey, Steam sale probably next week. Oh, good. This will be a good deal. Let's just add to that backlog even more, shall we? What the hell? But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.